welcome to this episode of the Corporate Escapists TV show and podcast. I am your host, Christine Innes. I am delighted to have the very beautiful, and I have to say this right because we're just having a joke because I was going to go Harley Quinn. So if anyone knows those, I'm like, oh no, it's Dr. Hayley Quinn. So welcome, beautiful.
I do get that a lot. And then when I say I'm a clinical psychologist, people just think that's hilarious.
I love it. I'm like sitting there going, I'm typing all the details out today. I'm like, Christine, come on. The power of the mind when we've like watched something or heard something so many times as well. So I'm just really delighted. I think we're going to have a really epic conversation today. So thank you so much for being here.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So I can get totally carried away, as most people know. So I'll just take a pause for a moment. I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we can dive into some amazing questions and learn more about what you do.
Fantastic. So the brief story is I'm Dr. Hayley D Quinn, not Dr. Harley Quinn. I am a trained clinical psychologist, but I work as an anti-burnout business coach. So I work a lot with women in service-based businesses who want to have successful businesses, but also success in their non-working life without compromising their well-being. So I come from a place of having had a very significant burnout and chronic illness and spent many years learning how to create the life that I want in a way that honors my well-being, and I work with a lot of women so that they can do the same.
Yeah, and you and I have been on a very similar journey. I know burnout. I live with 2 chronic illnesses. So yeah. I think, a lot of times that people don't even understand or could even recognize some of the early signs of burnout. Like it always happens right at the end when we've crashed with it. What are some of can you just sort of pinpoint some of the early signs of burnout for people so if they're listening and they could maybe just do a check-in with themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize that our body does give us nudges and whispers that we often don't listen to. But I think any significant changes are worth paying attention to. But if people are feeling more tired, things feel very hard to do, if they're starting to feel disconnected from work that perhaps they have previously enjoyed, or maybe it's not work, it might be other things. Because one of the things I do notice is people can kind of say, well, everything at work is fine, everything at work's fine, but when I get home, I've got nothing left to give anybody. So I think really paying attention to your energy levels, your level of engagement with not only your work, but perhaps your social relationships or your family relationships as well. And that sense of competency, we can start to have this decreased sense of competency because we're finding things harder. And then there's some things, my old roommate, when I was doing my PhD, he was the first guest on my podcast, and he talks about, he's a really funny guy, and he talked about noticing that everything became a joke for him. So whilst we wouldn't normally think being funny is a sign of something is wrong, he recognized that he wasn't wanting to look at anything seriously because he didn't like what he was going to see. So I think it can be really individual as well. So there's some very, if you Google burnout, there'll be lists of things you can look at. But I think the key is as well, knowing yourself and thinking, you know what, that's feeling harder, or I just don't want to do that anymore. Things that are changing for yourself, I think is important.
Yeah. I find this conversation and this topic very interesting because I get a lot of people who go, I left corporate because I suffered from burnout. Then they go in and start a business and they think that they're not going to have burnout.
And they do all the same things,
yes,
except more of it because now they're having to build a business for themselves.
Yeah. Do you get that a lot with your clients?
Yeah, I think it's important. We can't just take ourselves out of a context, move into a new context and do things the same and think we're going to get different outcomes. Like if we're not paying attention to ourselves, if we're not taking care of ourselves in a corporate job, unless you do things differently, you're not going to take care of yourselves as an entrepreneur or a small business owner. Or if you finish work and you start to just do things in the home and you don't take care of yourself, you're still going to have these negative outcomes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like in, working for yourself, like if you're in corporate, you're working full time. So you have the ability to fall onto sick leave and annual leave. But when you're a business owner, you do not get pretty much those luxuries until maybe a few years in, when you've built a little bit of cash flow and
Yeah.
put some savings behind you. It's a
Yeah.
24-hour, sometimes 7 days a week sort of job, like in the early stages of starting up.
Yeah, so I think that the key there is what are the kind of mini self-care activities you can be doing during your day, not waiting till you're sick, not waiting till you can go on a holiday,
Yeah.
but thinking about what are the things that I'm doing on a daily basis that are actually honoring my well-being and tuning into what I need as the individual that I am so that I can work in a way that isn't going to burn me out. And that might be just taking, if you're working with clients, you might take some time before and after a client where you just have a few minutes where you just do some soothing rhythm breathing, start to downregulate your nervous system. You might please make sure you're booking in some time to have lunch and not eating at your desk. So little things like that can make a big difference. Having good boundaries, starting out with good boundaries of the hours that you are and aren't going to work. And yes, when you're starting up, you may work more hours, but you still need to have boundaries around, well, I'm not going to be up till 2 in the morning because I need to get up the next day and be able to function.
Yeah.
And taking into account your own personal circumstances in terms of family commitments, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I found is that I went in to start a business because I wanted a flexibility to manage, obviously, working around my chronic illness
Yeah,
and knowing when I was going to be at my optimal.
yeah,
But then I sort of like, I'm super passionate about what I do. So then I tend to work more.
yeah,
And then you sit there and you go going, oh, hang on, this ain't working. This is just
yeah,
not working anymore, because what you originally started the business
yeah,
for, you tend to go back to, like you're saying, those old habits, and they just
yeah,
do creep back in very
yeah.
easily.
Absolutely. I have ADHD. I can get very hyper focused. Many entrepreneurs, small business
Yeah.
owners would be able to relate to that, I think. And one of the things I'll do if I know I've got a project I'm working on, I literally set an alarm to tell me to finish work.
Mm,
Because otherwise it could be like 9:30 at night and I'd be like, oh, I should probably eat. And I don't want to live like that. And I know that it's not helpful for me. So I have my meal times as alarms in my phone. So I stop regularly during the day to eat. And if I am working later, I tend to not work in the evenings. But if I'm trying to get a project finished or I'm working on something new or I'm just like really excited about a new
yeah.
thing, I set alarms for myself because I
Yeah.
know my own mind is just going to be like, let's keep going.
Yeah. Do you actually think it's really interesting you brought up the ADHD, because as I've gotten a lot older, I actually, and now it's become a very talked about subject, especially for women later in their life.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like approaching end, like late 40s.
yeah.
And I'm sort of like going, is ADHD sort of related to burnout, because you do get that hyper focused
Oh,
and
look, I think
can
if
go right in there.
yeah, look, I think if you have got ADHD and you're not managing your time and you're not managing things like
Mm,
hyperfocus, then absolutely it could contribute. I mean, there's so many things that can contribute to burnout.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that you've been learning yourself, with obviously coming from the, like a clinical type background, working for yourself? Like, what are some of the key things that you've learned that obviously we know about self-care and, taking some time out for it. But what are some of the personal things that you've noticed about yourself being in business?
Well, I think firstly for me, self-care needs to be much deeper than we think of self-care. And for me, it really starts with getting to know ourselves. So
Mm,
I'm really grateful for my background in clinical psychology because I understand how the human brain works. I understand the nervous system, things like that. And I guess it's been a process of trial and error. I've been in
yes.
business a long time, but it was a process of trial and error. And still, I allow myself to evolve the way I work. I'm getting older, I'm postmenopausal. There's different things I need. I don't have young children at home, but I have other things that I need to
Yeah.
tend to. Um, so for me, I guess it's recognizing that if I don't tune into myself regularly and ask myself regularly what it is that I need, I can end up working in ways that just aren't helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I need rest time. Well, we all need rest time. Like,
Yes.
let's not kid ourselves. We're human.
Yes.
We all need rest time. But I know that there's times that I need more rest than perhaps somebody else might, or I need more rest on a particular day than
Mm,
I might do on other days. So
yeah.
I have a practice where I greet myself every morning and I kind of check in. It's like, hey, Hayley, how you going? What's the day looking like? What do I need?
Yep.
What are the internal resources that I need to draw upon, and what are the external resources that I need to find so I can
Yeah.
get through the day in a way that honors my well-being and I'm not exhausted by the end of the day.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. Because I think a lot of the times that we do look externally, when most of the times that we've actually got the answers within, to be
Mm.
able to just go that little bit deeper and just, even just give ourselves permission
Yeah.
to be able to, take some time out.
Yeah.
And, self-care is not selfish.
No, not at all. It's
At
vital.
all. Yes,
It's
absolutely.
absolutely vital. And that taking time out, people will think, oh, I haven't got time for a holiday. It might be 10 breaths.
Mm,
It might be literally taking a couple of minutes, or sometime during the day when you see a gap, or hopefully you're actually putting gaps into your diary, you're not waiting for gaps to appear, is to just go for a little walk maybe.
yes.
Or a sit down. Like earlier for me, I just went and sat outside on my balcony and I had my eyes closed and I was just hand on heart and I was just taking some breaths. And that didn't go for a long time, but it does a number of things. It helps me regulate my nervous system, but it
Mm,
also reminds me that I care about myself.
yes. Yes. I think a lot of the times that, we just get so busy with life that we tend to do everything else and we're right down on the totem pole.
Yeah.
As I think most women have that tendency. Has that been your experience more so women than I know men do experience the burnout, but just from my experience of working with people, it's mainly been the women.
Look, I think, we know, and I was actually interviewing somebody for my podcast earlier, and we were talking about the research where it is showing that women, unfortunately, are having higher stress levels and burnout levels, because I think traditionally, and that's slowly changing, but for some people, they're still in very traditional roles, that women take on a lot more of the caregiving and the housekeeping tasks.
Yeah.
So, whereas they may not have been doing the full-time work previously, but now women are working part-time or full-time and doing a lot of the other work as well. And that's not to say all families are like that, but I think that absolutely contributes.
Mm, yeah. What's been the biggest learning lesson that you have experienced with being in business for yourself?
That business is a personal growth journey.
Yeah.
That you can learn all the business skills, that's fine,
Yep.
but the stuff, your own stuff that shows
Yep.
up at different times for different
Yep.
reasons is can be confronting and
Yes.
can also be very beautiful, because it's an opportunity for you to get to know yourself better and for you to grow through that. But I think it's absolutely a personal growth journey. It's not for the faint-hearted.
No, I think I always like you've taken the words right out of my mouth, because I always say to my clients that if you want the biggest personal development journey, go start a business,
Yeah.
because you're going to learn more about yourself than what you ever have learned, but you're also going to learn more about people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about like what you offer when people are working with you?
So my premise is really working with people to help them get to know themselves. I had a friend say to me, I'm an expert in helping people come home to themselves, which I just loved.
Mm,
So really helping people understand themselves and the way that they need to work so that they can have the success they want without compromising themselves.
mm,
I believe that if we thrive, our business will too. We don't
yes.
need to have one or the other. We can have a successful business and be well, but we
Yes.
need to be very intentional and deliberate about how we do that. We can't leave
Yeah.
that to chance.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. I think there's a beautiful integration. I don't believe that there's actually the perfect balance
Mm,
in life or business. I think what works for you may not work for other people, but it's like you're
absolutely.
saying, it's just finding the optimum things that work for you as well.
Absolutely. And I don't like that work-life balance saying. I don't
No.
think we find balance. Balance means you've got two things in equal proportion. I think of it more as the blend that you need in your own life. And that blend is going to change. Some days
Yeah.
it's going to look different, some weeks or months. We have different seasons in our life. And if we honor that
Yeah.
and we keep coming back to what do I need now to be
Yeah.
able to do these things I want to do in a way that honors me, I think we can do much more than we think we can sometimes. And we can really enjoy the fruits of our success. Because what's the point in building a business? I say to people, don't build a business you don't want just because the image of success is something you've read on social media. But also, if you want a successful business, whatever success means to you, you
Yeah.
also want to be able to be fit and well to enjoy the success.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What advice would you give to somebody who's watching this right now that has gone from corporate and experienced the burnout, and then they're wanting to, start their own business?
Well, oh, goodness. Well, I'd say, first of all, really think about what it is that you want. I
Mm,
think defining success for ourselves is a really fundamental part of the journey, because there's so many messages out there that will tell us what success looks like.
yeah.
And we can end up doing things that really take us down a path we don't want to be on.
Mm,
But honestly, get to know yourself.
yes.
Like, really tune in to what it is. What was it? And be really honest with yourself. What was it that led you to feeling burnt out? Now, some of that is going to be systematic and some of that is going to be organizational factors, but some of that is going to be personal.
Yes.
So I think we need to really be honest with ourselves about what got me where I am, and then really start this journey of getting to know yourself so that you can build something in a way that works for you as the individual that you are.
I love that so much. Look, I think this is a very hot topic right now, and I
Mm,
think so many people are either starting to recognize the signs
yeah.
or have experienced it in one part of their life. So we're going to pop all the details of how people can reach out to you below with it, because I think that anybody experiencing any change, whether it's changing careers, starting a business, they actually should be working with a coach
Yeah.
to make sure that they're in the right mindset for it too, but we can also make sure, like you're saying, they come back to self as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and sharing your gifts with us today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So we've got 5 very, very quick questions to ask you, just so people, it's just a little bit
Okay.
of fun. So the first question that we have is, are you a tea or a coffee person in the morning?
Tea, absolutely, all day, every day.
Okay, amazing, amazing. If you got some spare time, do you prefer to curl up with a movie, to watch a movie, or read a book?
Oh, tough one. I like both. I like both. So
Okay,
yeah, I'm going with both.
that's all good. That's all good. If you're going to your dream destination, would you prefer to travel by plane or by boat?
Oh, definitely plane. I don't really want to go on a boat.
Okay. And you're having a amazing dinner party, and you're allowed to invite one special guest from either the past or the present. Who would it be?
Oh, Maya Angelou comes to
Oh,
mind.
yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
would like to
definitely.
sit in conversation with her.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Fabulous.
I love that. I love that so much. We've had epic today, now fabulous. I love it so much. Amazing, amazing. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your gifts. This has been an absolute hot topic, and I know that so many people that have either experienced it and maybe
Yeah.
not have known it at that
Yeah.
start, or now that we're actually starting to highlight and get that awareness happening. So thank you so much, Dr. Hayley Quinn, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for watching this episode. Don't forget, if you've liked it, to make sure you hit the like and subscribe, put your comments below, and remember to live life to the fullest every single day. Love and light to you all.